Good morning, Trump's family. Welcome back to my channel. Have a good day, everyone, and God bless you. Alright, let's get into the news. And what we have here is the media Democrats, deep state, the swamp are all panicking. And this is truly one of the reasons I know they're trying to sabotage any chance that President Trump would have to run for re-election in 2024. Because they know he is on a warpath, and he is going to ensure that he is able to purge the swamp, the deep state, even more than he did the first term. Which is fantastic news for the American people, which is fantastic news for people that are actually looking for a one-tier justice system versus a two-tier justice system, what we see currently happening today. However, this is what their immediate is writing about. They think this is like a hip piece. They think this is something terrible, that are going to get people not to vote for Trump. Well, I'm going to vote for Trump even harder after hearing about this. This plan that Trump now has. So let's go and dive into this, coming to it from Axios over here, and it says this year. It says radical plan for Trump's second term. I like how they frame it like it's supposed to be scary. That's going to turn people off voting for Trump. Oh my gosh, he wants to get rid of the deep state. So let's take a look at this here. It says former President Trump's top allies are preparing to radically reshape the federal government if he is re-elected, purging potentially 1,000s of civil servants and filling career posts with loyalties to him and his American First ideology. People involved in the discussion tell Axios the impact could go well beyond typical conservative targets such as the EPA, the IRS. Trump allies are working on plans to would potentially stir or strip layers at the Justice Department, including the FBI, and reaching into national security intelligence, the State Department, and the Pentagon. Sources close to the former president say during his presidency, Trump often complained about what he called the deep state be part of the plan as derived from an executive order known as Schedule F, deployed as redefined in a secret over most of the second half of Trump's term and launched 13 days before the 2020 election. The reporting from Sirius draws of the extensive interviews over a period of more than 3 months with more than 24 people close to the former president and others who have first-hand knowledge of the work underway to prepare a potential second term. Most spoke on the condition of being anonymous to describe sensitive planning to avoid Trump's iron. Yeah, that's not something that is going to get me not to vote for Trump. I'm going to vote for him even harder. I'm going to get other people to vote for Trump harder, because this scares them. The potential of Trump going in, stripping down the FBI, stripping down to DOJ, other intelligence agencies, the IRS, the EPA, all these things scare the globalists, scare people like the Democrats to rhinos. They scare them because they know they need this entrenched network of loyalties for them in order to stop anything that they feel is going to upset their money trains, their gravy trains, or whatever you want to call it. You don't upset the norms in DC because it's all set to benefit them and not to benefit us. And Trump vows to go through into DC and strip many of these agencies away. And wish he would have followed through all the way through his first term. Hopefully he has learned his lesson after this. After what took place during his first impeachment, how deep state was working against them, it is time to strip away all of these leftover commie Democrats who continue to occupy these posts. Okay, here's Durham. He's going to put away Sussman. And next is Hillary Clinton. And it didn't work out that way. It seems that it was the trial was held in DC, which is completely corrupt. And Sussman got off. And why do you think Durham went ahead, proceeded with the trial in DC? Was there another strategy that he was working on? Yes. The strategy, if you look at it from the 40,000-foot view, even if someone is convicted, he's a DC power lawyer, a Democrat. You have no criminal record. And he's facing a single charge of making a false statement. So if convicted, he likely would have gotten maybe, let's say, 6 months probation and a fine. If you go back and look over that 8-month with the filings that Durham made, in that case, against him, what he was doing, what he was laying out, a joint venture, basically a criminal conspiracy involving the Clinton campaign and political operatives that they hired at places like 50 GPS. And there are some Georgia Tech cyber researchers and their most interesting disclosure, the domain and its filings and assessment case. Was that widely Jonathan, these other cybersecurity experts who are federal contractors with the US government, during May the revelation that these cyber contractors were double dipping. They were being brought in and given contracts and hired to improve the United States government cybersecurity bill. These agencies embrace it, such as the FBI, CIA, NSA, and the Executive Office of the President of the White House. But they weren't just taking money from the federal government to improve cybersecurity. They were also on the side. They were working for the Hillary Clinton campaign. And they were given a list of political targets to surveil, and they were spying on people politically motivated, targeting private American citizens by federal contractors working on the site for Hillary Clinton. That was the big scandal. Of course, I'm padding the only when talking about it, the mainstream media completely downplaying that. But John Durham revealed that the Hillary Clinton campaign with 10 private federal contractors to spy on the side for her and use the access to these law enforcement and intelligence databases to spy on political targets and to steal classified or non-public data off of these federal databases, and clearly to her political operatives, so that they could construct Russia collusion hoaxes with them. And we know so far as to specific Russian collusion hoaxes that weren't concocted the information, the verbal contract with people in the Clinton campaign that they stole off of these federal databases. There's the alphabet, coax, and then there's the steal that you can, because I believe that I'm gonna prove some of the data that Ronnie Joff and his fellow cyber experts stole off of the federal databases. And from places like the Executive Office of the President, some of that data made its way into the Steele doc, and some I believe that when you look at the filings as a whole, this is the case Durham laid out. So whether or not Michael Strassman was convicted on one single phosphate me count where he'd have gotten a couple of months per patient in a filing, that wasn't really the major. The second major thing was for him to lay the groundwork to bring the conspiracy with what is essentially a criminal conspiracy out into the open. And not just that the opening of the first case was Jasmine, no, Dan Chaco coming up. And I know we'll be talking about that too. And we still need to focus on some things about the stilled is fear that the mainstream media has also been downplaying, that downplayed that Hillary Clinton had private spy network, spying inside the opposite of the president itself for her and taking data off the databases of the Executive Office of the President, which they used and tried to hand it off to the CIA. Yeah, I mean, that's just mind blown. And most of the mainstream media has not caught up with this. So they do not want to talk about it. And so at least they do. A lot of people who look like this Dutchman case was an utter failure, but as to get laid in a lot of valuable groundwork for the cases. Now, people won't be confused. Wait, that's the guy that's stolen information off of the database and gave it to Perkins carrying. They made the Steele dossier, but it's not going to make sense when these later indictments drop. Now, what's very interesting is that we know that Didanchenko case is coming up in October, and this isn't being held in D.C. I think this is being held in Virginia. But Hillary Clinton, her lawyer said, and this is regarding Trump's lawsuit, saying, listen, Hillary doesn't know Didanchenko, she has nothing to do with Danchenko. And the lawsuit should be dropped. Why do you think Hillary and her lawyers are making this plea right now, right before the Danchenko case? Well, she can claim that she doesn't really know Michael Sussman either. She doesn't really know right in the jobs enough, maybe never personally met any of these people. Say what, this is just Clinton making a specious argument. He knew the middleman, she knew to go between. It's about the whole reason why the Hillary Clinton campaign had infused in GPS via the law office of Perkins Q. Either they're in or they have marked and last working as general counsel for the Clinton campaign. He was like the super lawyer, but the whole reason they're hiring. Okay, we get to be the middleman. Hillary Clinton not going out poking, hiring Glenn Simpson and click the push. Do I need to again, Chunko? Net when you're, if he's the GPS he's not doing as you're studying Mike Elias, the Michael Stockman and the lawyers that put them to it. If do that for her, lack gives her plausible deniability. So when something comes up, and like Robbie just gets caught stealing classified data for her and being paid to do it, all right, here we go again, Danchenko and inventing stories on working collusion, the independent Steele dossier, and some of these stories came from Clinton family funky and longtime political advisor Chuck Dolan. He and Dan Chico get caught lying about this to the FBI. He ends up going on trial for it. And I can't confirm, I've never met this guy. I have no idea who he is. Yeah, because she knew to lawyers to hire these people. So I don't see the argument that you can think to make to step Trump's deliver less than really going anywhere. So what do you think this Danchenko trial is going to produce? And do you think Danchenko is going to be brought up on charges and actually convicted? Okay. Yeah, this is a completely different kind of trial. First of all, if nothing held in the state, why now it's just, down to where the Stephen Banning trial's gonna say, and I just have a gut feeling that it's Michael Saltzman. What work? So he was obviously guilty. You know, that trial's done him laid out a very compelling case. Yeah. Specimen. What cut after having played an intimate role in constructing what was the fake Trump collusion hoax and the Alfa Bank. He didn't lie about representing the Clinton campaign when he tried to give it to the FBI and tell him establish that, and he proved it through notes and put them to testimony. But the juicy, let Sussman walk anyway. They basically said, well, he's one of us. He's a Democrat. He's one of our guys from our time. And when our hand and Trump win, so they're let's obviously guilty Sussman walk and now Stephen Bannon is on track. And he down prosecutor abandoned and so pathetic, they called the two witnesses who really didn't establish anything. They don't have any evidence to offer the jury. And they were asked in the other day, I think Ben is get to make it the fact that they ended up convicting Stephen Bannon, and I'm asking to definitely show just how corrupt the term we're having in DC. But I had people tell me well, this trial with Dan Check goes in the Eastern District of Virginia, I believe it's under Judge Trenger Anthony Traeger, who's also been hearing the big case against the DNSSEC and one of General Flynn's former business partners. And he's been kind of fair on that. But I'm told that Virginia isn't much different from DC, it's like too close. No, not the one thing that I think will lead to Dan Chico being convicted, and I'm confident he will be convicted and take that for what it for that document was done to be convicted after. But when he was there, I see that Check Obey to Bacteria's Festoon's lawyers may have been able to create some doubt because this is our handwritten notes written after the fact. This is witnesses testifying yet to direct collection weeks, and sometimes months or even years later. And that's not going to be how girls in the Den checkout trial. He had, I believe it was 5 meetings with the FBI between January 2017 and November 2017. And at least 3 of the aerial views that he had with FBI agents were recorded. They actually stayed, and some of the firings the team and then checked OK, which there have been some meeting activity, and that he then check out was not aware twice, that they say he was not aware of any of the was being recorded. There are recordings of any of the transcripts that exist. So this isn't just some guy scribbling some notes, you know, a couple hours after the meeting on the witness stand being asked to try to recollect as best he can stop a meeting he had with somebody, you know, 4 or 5 years ago. There was documentation and recordings to add after time. After the things that they check on we're learning about it putting clearly established the file into this document case established that he was the stockman was involved in creating a hoax and trying to give it to the FBI, while hiding who his employers were. He was claiming that Chaco's much more complicated than that, but it's also the case is much stronger than the one against Stuxnet. Chaco played an integral role in creating the Steele dossier. He was the one who is he the person that caused the primary stab so to the PSF. The whole background about Dan Chenko the mainstream media has been successful bearing and carving it up or covering it over, but I think Dome's done or established things to think about its background. Can get their Serco lied to the FBI on easily provable points. He attempted to hide Chuck Dolan's involvement. They caught him on that. He claimed he got some of the most damaging allegations, the P-tag, and the some of these other allegations he came to get them from a gentleman who was dealing with the former Work and Chamber of Commerce guy whose name escapes me at the moment, cabling Forgotten Man. But the FBI established the dead Chenko. I never in fact spoken to this person. You didn't check out supposed to come out and said I've never spoken to you. Go dead check. I don't know. So they're checked out got caught easily provable wise, and making these false statements. Just to I think, again, he's much more likely to be convicted than then Safman one. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much. If you want to support my voice and my work,